Quick video on things that every owner should do after they've stopped towing for the day and they're at their final destination and set up or at an overnight location. What you want to do is, of course, look these tires over real good. You want to look at the general tread. Look for any evidence of tread separation, splitting, things of that nature. And you also want to look at the sidewall of the tire. Take a good look at your wheel for any evidence of cracking. Make sure all the lug nuts are there. This is a 7K Dexter axle, so there's 8 lug nuts. And you want to do the same for all 4 tires, you know. Take a few minutes and get underneath and look those tires over. And you can see on these tires, this is on the left hand side, and we're looking at the rear tire. The inner rib appears to be wearing about the same as the outer rib is, and when I run my hand across here it feels pretty flat, so that tells me that my 105 to 110 psi cold inflation is a good tire pressure and has been working well for these tires now for almost 7 years. I normally wouldn't run a set of tires this long, but I'm very impressed with these Les Schwab Geostar 14 ply tires. You also want to take a look at your center link assembly. Make sure that the spring shackle brackets are flipped up, and you can see that there's nice evidence of grease. I lube these before every trip. You also want to look down around the back side of the axle if you can, and we'll see if we can get this phone in the proper position. And we want to look at the brake hardware wire. And we'll give you a quick little look-see at the front spring. There are 2 springs, of course, one for each axle, and one on each axle on each side, so a total of 4 springs. You want to make sure the U-bolts that hold the spring to the saddle mount on the axle are not damaged, broken, or missing. You want to take a look at the wet bolts that come through on your springs and make sure that they're there. And we're also looking at the brake wiring that's coming down through the coroplast, and you can see that now. And it runs down to the back side of the hub for the axle and runs inside to the solenoid magnet. And now we're looking across the right side. I'm over on the left side laying underneath the 5th wheel, and we just want to take a look at these springs and the hardware and the brake wiring that comes through, looking for anything that's out of place, a broken wire, something like that. Look at those spring shackle bolts, make sure that they're still there and that all the hardware is there. And of course the wet bolt, we want to look at that, and you'll have a wet bolt through each spring eyelet end. You want to make sure that those are there and that nothing has fallen off. I'll give you another view looking from the back side on the left hand side of the 5th wheel, and we'll zoom in just a little bit where you can see the brake wire hardware, or excuse me, brake wires running through the back side of the hub, and you just want to make sure that all of that looks intact, no broken wires. And we're going to zoom upwards, and we're going to look at the back side of the rear spring eye where it's attached to the spring hanger, and you want to look at these welds on that spring hanger and make sure that they're in good shape. Make sure the wet bolt is there, and you'll see on these axles of mine, they've been on the road for 8 years, and so you see a little surface rust, and that's normal. You're going to see that even on a brand new unit probably. And sometimes I'll take and clean these up a little bit, brush them with a wire brush, and spray a little black spray paint on them just to make them look pretty. But the main important area on these spring hangers is look real close up at that weld where the bracket is welded onto the frame, and make sure you don't see any cracks, and make sure the brackets themselves are nice and straight and not bent. And this visual inspection, it only takes a few minutes to do, and if you get in the habit of doing this on your Alpine after you've stopped towing for the day, you won't be sitting on the side of the road broke down with broken suspension parts because you took the time to be proactive and inspect your axles, your brake hardware, what you can see from the outside, and of course the overall condition of these tires.